Well, before we start winching up to a tree, we're going to use a tree saver. And that's going to be a nice thick strap to put around the tree to protect it instead of just wrapping the winch line around it, which will actually cut into it and can damage our winch line. So we'll just get that secure around the tree, and then we need to connect this side to the winch line. Now there's two ways of doing that. We have the traditional bow shackle and we have the soft shackle. Is one better than the other in this situation? And maybe, in fact maybe, and this may be the time that we want to use the bow shackle. Now this particular strap here, see if it's got where it's got the rating on it, it's on here somewhere. But this is like a 40,000 pound strap. So it's not the weak spot at all. And when we double it, we're distributing that pull on both sides of this. So this is probably more like a 70,000 pound strap at this point. So this is not going to break. The bow shackle is going to be, I see if this one has a rating on it. This is 4 tons. So for, like 12,000 pounds or something with a breaking strength of like 5 times that, so in the 50,000 pound area. So this isn't going to break. Our small soft shackle here is rated for about 20,000 pounds, which is still far more than we need to actually pull the Jeep up here. So none of these are going to be any issues or any problems. But in this particular case, I'd want to use the strongest system possible. So in that case, I'm going to go with the bow shackle. And this is really designed for this type of thing. So we'll pull the pin out and we'll put it into both sides of the strap here. And then when it's pulling, it's going to pull in 2 different directions. So this is going to be a super strong connection. Now, normally I would say we want to eliminate any big pieces of steel because if there's a failure, this thing can just go ballistic and go right through a Jeep. But it's not going to fail here because we have such a heavy-duty strap on here divided by 2. This is not going to be a failure point. So I have 0 risk of this thing going ballistic. Even if one of these straps gave way, it's just going to come around the tree and kind of drop right here. This isn't just going to go flying somewhere. So in my book, this is an extremely safe setup. So next, we'll go ahead and bring the winch up here and get it attached. We've got the winch line pulled up over here, and I use the Factor 55 Flat Link E because it's a closed system. Now the winch itself came with a big hook with the little spring thing on it. I'm not a fan of that. Should something happen and it slip out or that spring break, it's just a point of failure that I don't want to have. So the Factor 55 Flat Link is really going to add this extra level of security. So I can put it right in here into the bow shackle and tying it up right through there. And now we have a completely closed system. There's no point of failure in here. So at this point, we're just about ready to start our winching. All right, even though I've got a synthetic rope here, we are going to use a line dampener. And this is always a safe thing to do. This is basically just a weight to put on the winch line. So should something happen, it's going to help keep it from flying back. Now, some people will tell you that a synthetic line is simply going to fall to the ground if it breaks. Well, it depends on how much load is on it. If I've got a 6,000 pound Jeep and I've got the full load going on here and this line snaps, it's flying back somewhere. Now, it may not kill you, it may not rip you in half, but it's not going to feel good. So we always are going to use these line dampeners. And we just open it up. It's got Velcro in it. We're just going to drape it over the line. and I'm about a third of the way between the line, with a third of it being closest to my anchor point. The rest of the other 2/3 is towards the Jeep. This is going to work just fine. All right, we have our tree saver connected to our bow shackle, to our flat link. We have the line dampener on here. We have the winch back into engage, so we're ready to do our pull. We have our remote in hand, and we're going to go ahead and start the Jeep up. We never want to do a winch pull without the engine running. It's bad on the battery. So we're going to make sure that the engine is running. Now, she's going to go ahead and put it into probably manual 1. Now, she could easily crawl up this right now. It's dry, but in a couple of weeks, this is going to be covered with ice and snow, be damn near impossible to get up here. So we're just going to kind of pretend. So I'm just going to have her put it in gear, but not give it any gas. You ready? All right, and now I'm going to start winching up. And I don't want to hold this down through the whole pull. I want to cycle it. I want to keep the winch from overheating. So I'm going to go for a few seconds and then let off. Go for a few seconds and let off. You know, upwards of 20, 30 seconds is probably fine. We can see it's having no problem pulling the Jeep up. So this is your basic single line pull when there's not any additional issues where maybe you're stuck in mud or having to go over rocks where the pull is going to be much harder. So next we'll show a double line pull. So the first thing we need to know about our winch is its maximum pull capacity is when there's only one layer of rope on the spool. For every additional layer, we lose about 10% efficiency. So with 5 layers on here, I'm down to about 50% of my rated capacity. Now this is a 10,000 pound winch, which means I'm down to about 5,000 pounds on a 6,000 pound Jeep. So sometimes we need to deal with that particular situation and either get more line pulled out, so we use the maximum pulling efficiency of the winch, or we use a snatch block to get a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage, turning this from a 10,000 pound winch into a 20,000 pound winch. So let's go set up a snatch block and show how to get that mechanical advantage. So here we have our snatch block, and this is a Gear America one, 10,000 pound working limit, and we're pulling a 6,000 pound Jeep with a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage, so we should have plenty of power out of this snatch block. Now the way this works is we open it up, we drop our line in there, close it up, and essentially this is nothing more than a pulley. And if we have the line coming from the winch up to here and then back to the Jeep, we have a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage. Now for every meter of line that we pull in, we're only moving the Jeep half of that distance. That's why we know we have a mechanical advantage. So to do that, we're going to take the line off of here and we'll connect our snatch block. Now again, this is not where I would want to use a soft shackle. I think I still have one in my pocket. So there's 2 reasons for that. One, if we're connecting this with a soft shackle, we have 2 problems. One is we have some pretty sharp edges on here that we don't want to cut through the soft shackle. And 2, by pulling this tight on here, we're exceeding the maximum bend radius of the soft shackle, which is going to cause it to prematurely wear. So this is absolutely a case where we want to use a bow shackle. So we'll put it back in here. Oh, we got to get the line on it. So, all right. So I'm going to take the winch line onto the snatch block. So it's going to pull back through it like that and attach that to the bow shackle. So pretty simple setup. Now we need to take and run this back to the Jeep. All right. We've got one length going out to the tree, the other length coming back to the Jeep, and we need to secure this to the Jeep somehow. And we have a couple different ways of doing it. So I have these basically permanent D-shackles on here. I could take one of these off and put it on there, which would be fine. But this is definitely a case where a soft shackle is going to be fine. I have a nice smooth surface on the bow shackle and a very nice radius inside on the flat link E. So I can just put that through there, get that on there, and we're ready to go. Now, I've seen a bunch of different people talk about how to have the bow shackle positioned, and in test strengths that Factor 55 did, they found there was no difference whether it was up, back, middle, whatever. My personal preference is to have the ball facing up with the loop around it. But again, according to Factor 55, it literally makes no difference. So once we have everything up here, we're going to cinch the line up and we'll start our pull. Okay, once again, just to kind of show it, we have the winch line going to the tree saver, to the snatch block, back to the Jeep on the bumper with a soft shackle. And because our weak spot is probably the soft shackle, that's where I have the line dampener, just in case things go wonky here. Now, we're ready to winch. We make sure everybody is at a safe distance. About 1.5 times the length of the pole is what I normally recommend. But when we look at this and we say, well, that soft shackle is definitely the weak spot, right? It's not, actually. We got 20,000 pounds there. We got a heavy duty line. We got the tree saver, the snatch block, the D-ring. What's our weak spot here? It's actually the winch. Believe it or not, the weak spot in this setup is going to be the winch. It may lose gears or stall or something before anything else on here fails. That doesn't mean something can't fail. It just means, as a general rule, right now, that's our weak spot. Because the two lines, the snatch block, the soft shackle only has half the weight on it because that line's distributed. So we're going to go ahead and arm our winch. We're going to start the engine in the Jeep. We're going to put it in gear. But again, she's not going to give it any gas. I'm going to do all the pulling with the winch. And now what we're going to see is the winch is moving everything much, much slower. So for every foot of line that's pulled into the Jeep or into the winch, we're only moving 6 inches because we have this double line setup, but it also gives us twice the pulling power. So very, very strong setup. This should get people out of just about any situation. So we'll go ahead and pull up some more. And it's pulling the Jeep up, no problem. Again, this would work great in snow and ice and sand, whatever. As long as you have a good anchor point, a double line pull is going to be the way to go. So what do we do if there's no trees and all we have is other Jeeps around? And we're going to use one of them as an anchor. Well, it's the same exact setup. We would use a D-shackle to the snatch block exactly the same way we did it here. But one important safety tip is the Jeep that's acting as the anchor should not be in gear, right? If you have it in park or reverse or drive or something like that, that pull may end up breaking a gear in that Jeep. So you always want to be in neutral and just use your brake. Now, if that's causing that Jeep to move instead of the one being recovered, then you need to anchor that Jeep. And you can do that by either anchoring to a tree or maybe anchoring to another Jeep. So you have twice the braking power by anchoring multiple Jeeps together. But you never want to be in gear because you risk damaging your transmission. So keep that in mind when putting together a winching solution. All right, so that was the double line pull, and previously we did the single line pull. We'll get things cleaned up here and we'll go find something else to do. All right, what we have here is what we call a center line pull. Now we have the winch line going up to a snatch block and then over to an anchor tree, with the snatch block being anchored to another tree. And what this is allowing us to do is pull the Jeep straight up the trail. If we went to one of the other trees, we're going to be winching at an angle, which is going to take power away from the winch and potentially pull us in a direction that we don't want to go. So let's take a look at the configuration that we have here. So we have a big tow strap to this tree, to a bow shackle connected to the snatch block. Then this is going to run over to the tree saver, which is connected to the flat link with another bow shackle. This is going to give us plenty of strength. Now, even though we have a snatch block here, this is not increasing our towing or our pulling capacity because it's not connected back to the Jeep. All we're doing is redirecting the angle. So this doesn't help in pulling ability, but it is going to help in that the winch line is straight into the winch instead of off to a hard angle. So it's going to keep us going straight and keep us on the trail. So let's put her in action. All right, we've got the engine running. We have our remote. We've got our line dampener on here. We should be all set to do this pull. Now, I'm not in the best position here because of where the line is, so I'm not going to do a full pull up here just due to safety, but I'm just going to show that we're just going to be able to pull right up this hill. So very simple pull. And it's not always going to work because you have to have trees in the right spots, but this can be a very handy type of pull to get you out of some specific situations. So that's the center line pull.